Well, hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our webinar. We're calling it Straight from the Source, Student Voices from 3 online MBA programs. We're going to have them tell it like it is, what it's really like to basically do an online MBA at Boston University's Questrom School of Business, American University's Kogod School of Business, and Johns Hopkins University's Carey Business School. So we have one in Boston, one in Baltimore, and one in Washington, D.C. Well, let me welcome my guests and introduce them to you. From Questrom, we have Raymond Ortiz. He is actually going to walk and get his diploma at the end of this year in December. He's a project manager at Mount Sinai Health System. From Kogod, we have Will Patterson, who will be graduating this year as well. He's a sales operations specialist. And from Johns Hopkins Carey, we have Eli Vey, who is also graduating this year with his online MBA. He is a brand sales specialist for IBM. Welcome, everybody. So, give me a little intro, and in the intro, I'd like you to tell people why you decided to get an MBA in the first place, and then why you choose the online option. Raymond, let's start with you and your experience at Questrom.
Yeah, so the what led me first, well, when I was trying to get my MBA, before the MBA, I was thinking about getting a nursing degree, but this was during the time of COVID, and at the time I felt there was priority to take care of my family and not pursue higher education. When the market had settled down, it was like, okay, I think after giving it enough time, MBA was the route to go. Most of my supervisors attended BU. There was the affordability, of course, and then the biggest component for me was when I reached out to the ambassadors, they were much more genuine with their highs and lows versus all the programs that I was talking to where they were just trying to sell me the program and not really telling me the things that went, under the carpet. So it made the choice for BU much easier.
And why the MBA instead of the nursing degree? I mean, nurses are in great demand. You were,
Yeah.
working in Mount Sinai, great system.
So the ROI for the master's program was much more beneficial than that of the nursing. Not to say that you can't get a great career with the nursing, there is demand for it, but I would have to learn new material, potentially change up what I was currently doing. Whereas with the MBA, I'm currently project managing with the hospital. The MBA is giving me the tools to look under the hood and actually operate more within, the C-suite level, which I'm close to getting there. So it made
Right.
the decision much easier.
Great. Will, how did you come to your decision to go to Kogod?
Yeah, so I was in a place where I had just finished my undergrad at Elizabethtown College near Hershey, Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
and I knew that it was my goal to move right into my MBA. I looked at multiple universities from Penn State, University of Maryland, College Park, University of Baltimore, and around that time, as Raymond talked about, was the COVID pandemic was in full effect. So originally, I was thinking about going right into an in-person full-time program, but then I really did a lot of research on the online MBA program. And I saw so much of the benefits in terms of being able to work from home, but still be immersed in the business atmosphere in the classroom and having opportunities to work with corporations and alumni with a really vast network. So I did more research into that, and that's how I came upon Kogod. And Kogod's just the ability to move forward with Kogod and the application process was so streamlined and so easy to do. Namely for just providing resumes, your academic transcripts, and if you did take the GMAT, they would take the scores, but it was also waived if you didn't. So there wasn't really a need to. So the ability to move right into the process to get interviewed and have an offer of acceptance was very quick. And the staff was incredibly friendly, very easy to talk to and work with. And the program itself was just so engaging from the course materials to real world situations that there was just such a wealth of knowledge that Kogod offered, and it really made the choice very easy for me.
Great. Eli, what brought you to Carey?
Yeah, so I was a working professional for about, 6 years, 7 years. And I want to say around, year 4, year 5, I started considering MBA programs. And I had a lot of friends who had previously gotten their MBAs. So had a lot of conversation with them, trying to get an understanding of what they thought the ROI was. Because when I was thinking about it initially, I recognized that I had some skills gap and I really I had a skill for viewing business through more of a qualitative lens and wanted to understand things more quantitatively. And,
Hmm.
they really challenged me to have a holistic approach. And they almost tried to steer me away from the online program. But in doing, going through that holistic approach and evaluating things and some of the roles that I would have been applying for post MBA, I realized that experience was something that I was always coming, up on, that it would show that, experience was needed X amount of years. So I think the online program really just provided me that flexibility where I could get experience rather and while getting my MBA rather than, not having that 2 years of experience. I realized an MBA wouldn't bridge the gap for me to get where I wanted to. And ultimately, I chose Carey. One, I think during that process of the application process and evaluating schools, I really felt at home there. The staff was really amazing. And they were answering questions. They were extremely resourceful. Things that I hadn't considered, they were challenging me to, get a better understanding of those things. And I really thought, hey, this application process is going to be indicative of how things are once I, get into the program. So that really played a major role in steering me towards Carey. And I also understood that, the academic rigor at Carey would also help bridge that skills gap that I was looking to close. And I also would get a little bit of an in-person experience through the residency that Carey offers, my proximity to the main campus and the DC campus, and through some of the participation of how Carey really brings that online program and the in-person programs together.
And you mentioned an acronym that I think everyone thinks about when they're applying to an MBA program, ROI. So Eli, how did you think about ROI and how does it compare to maybe a full-time program?
Yeah, so when I started the process, really the ROI was really, how can I bridge this gap and, bridge a skills gap. So that's one of the main things that I was viewing as one of the primary ROIs, but also I really wanted to make connections. I wanted to be able to tap into a network of mentors, and I really wanted to grow my professional network. So those things were really big ROIs for me, as opposed to, I looked at some other types of programs from certificate programs because, those were also good ways that you could bridge a skills gap. And, those programs for me, I think, although they're impactful, I think they're more about knowledge acquisition, whereas the MBA, and viewing things holistically really offered me, a lot more beyond acquiring a skill set.
Right. And Will, you have thoughts about ROI?
Yeah, the ROI for my MBA at Kogod has been astronomical, more than I anticipated when I started. The amount of time that I've invested in the classroom and learning, not really so much the what about behind specific subjects like accounting and statistics and digital marketing and analytics, but really the biggest takeaway for me has been the why behind it. You learn
Hmm.
things that you don't learn in the undergrad, more or less about the why,
Right. So, and you
because
can
you're able
add
to apply them
value
to not just the
immediately.
real. Exactly. And you apply it to a managerial sense because you're in a different place in your career. You've come out of the classroom in your undergrad. You have a little bit more years of professional experience under your belt. The why is so influential, and the professors really make sense for you and really applicable for your specific industry that you work within. So.
And Raymond, I'm sure that you were thinking of ROI as well when you signed up at Questrom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Will and Eli hit it on the head. I think the only two I would add outside of that is if you're trying to prove to your management that you can manage multiple things, maintaining your career while doing the MBA program, while also simultaneously raising a family, that's a pretty solid way of showing them you can do it.
And that's a lot to balance as well, let's
Yeah.
face it, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So, give us a little sense of the learning experience. So Raymond, what has it been like? I mean, what were your first impressions? Uh, and bring us through your learning journey at Questrom.
Yeah, so in the beginning, it always ebbs and flows depending on the course content in the semester. It's almost follows like a bell curve. In the first couple of weeks, it's nice and steady, and then it ramps up to some astronomical level of difficulty or just workload, and then drops off when you can finally breathe when it's done. The first thing I noticed immediately was that outside of different people coming from different geographic locations and experience, they bring it, but at the same time, you're all on the same level. So the doctor who's trying to get their MBA is also trying to learn the same material learning. So it's great to go into that. When I went into it, sort of realize that your experience is great. I can lean on you for expertise when that material comes up where I need that hand. But you and I are on the same platform in terms of achieving this goal. So you don't have any more weight or importance than I do. We're all in this together. And it's sort of that early on set the tone for how I was going to manage teams effectively when we were grouped with them. Because I think that's one of the trickiest things to navigate when you get into the online MBA. How do you form a team quickly based on different values and personalities and aspirations? Some people just want the degree, some people don't want the A, some people want all of it. How do you balance that with your own aspiration?
Right. Exactly. In terms of the learning journey, was how demanding was it, and what kind of sacrifices did you have to make?
I mean, my core sacrifices, there's sometimes where I want to go to the gym and you just can't because you have capstones or it's minor sacrifices. I'd say it gets out of hand if you don't prepare for it. So tapping your family, like I immediately tell my wife, look at the syllabus. I have block classes on Wednesday. I need you to watch the kids, 8 o'clock at night. Letting them know immediately is much better on it. It just makes the work much easier. Of course, there's those moments where you get some of the material and it's easy because you're living and doing it within your professional life. And then you get hit on the head with, something that's outside of my forte, is my experience is, expense. And we're learning stocks right now. And I'm like, more power to you for whoever manages this. I just need to get through this because this is super difficult for me.
Right. That's great. Will, can you talk a little bit about your learning experience at Kogod?
Absolutely. And I think it's something that's really been talked about in depth so far between Eli, Raymond, and myself. But flexibility is a big part of having a successful learning journey. I was really fortunate to take advantage of a tremendous amount of flexibility with Kogod's online MBA because they offer you the opportunity to take more than one class if you'd like, or just limit your term to only one class. So for me, being able to take one class a term provided me a balance in my career growth and really maintaining a rapport with the company that I was working with while maintaining a stellar academic performance in my classes, where I was able to retain the information and do well, in studying and examinations and projects and things like that. So I was really able to immerse myself in the material more and apply my experiences to my professional roles in a much more relevant way. So the other thing that about Kogod's flexibility was the options for temporary leave. I know things happen in our lives. We have bereavements in our families,
Sure.
or you're traveling for something in your job and you need to take a leave of absence. Kogod offers, for whatever the reason may be, an opportunity to take as much as 4 temporary leaves of absence, which is really great because it allows you the flexibility to balance your work and your life at the same time. Now, I will say this, if you do for any reason go over those 4 temporary leaves of absences, the bad news is you have to reapply back into the program. Now, that was how it was for me and how I went through the process. Kogod may have changed those things recently, but the really great thing is in the situation where if you're working through trying to get your program done within a certain amount of time, 2 to 3 years, you really aren't going to need all 4. I fortunately have used only one, and it was really a rewarding experience because I was able to take on more responsibilities at my job, and I'm still on track to graduate at the end of this year. So it's a rewarding thing to be able to have a program that really works with you and is more collaborative and really tries to market themselves with that flexibility. It's a really great commodity to have in your program.
Right. Eli, the learning journey at Carey.
Yeah, I can echo a lot of the things said by Raymond and Will. I think with the online program at Carey, the flexibility and self-paced learning, starting this program, I had been 6, 7 years removed from undergrad. So coming into it, I didn't know, how to reacclimate as a student. So that first semester, I took one class to let me get my footing, let me understand and really learn how to be a student again. And I've been able to really increase from there to 2 classes to where I, landed on a 3 class course load per semester. And, so it's challenging, but, with anything, I would really say prioritization, visibility, and accountability is really the approach I take with my learning process. And what I mean by that is really prioritizing what needs to get done. And you mentioned sacrifice earlier. Having a calendar that gives you visibility into, okay, this is how I need to prioritize school, work, and my personal life. Getting everything on a calendar. This is the first time in my life where I was putting social events on my calendar just to really get visibility into everything that I'm doing. So once I have that visibility, then you're able to hold yourself accountable to say, I need to get this done for school, I need to get this done for work, and even just your personal life, because that is important as well. And one thing that I can say about Carey as well is the professors are extremely healthy. The program is really designed for you to succeed, and your professors are very understanding. They're always there, always a resource, quick response. So when I have encountered certain times in life that didn't allow me to be as engaged as possible, reaching out and really just letting them know, and they've always been really helpful to guide me through those process and allow me to get to the other end of that.
Right. Now, all three of you are nearing the end of your learning journeys in these programs. All of you will graduate this year. So I wonder if you can look back on the experience already and say, here are the three things I most enjoyed about the experience. Eli, what three things would you identify?
Yeah, that's a great question. And looking back on the program and really just how I would really summarize it's really been an exercise of, getting comfortable with things that I'm uncomfortable with. So in undergrad, my mindset was really, hey, I'm not a quant-based person. I don't understand this thing. And you tend to curate your academic journey based on the things you think are your strengths. And coming into Carey, I would want to say one of the most memorable things and something that I am proud of myself is how the program allowed me to challenge myself and, overcome some of these things and build that resiliency. And when you're going through it, it doesn't feel like success in those moments. And you want to pull your hair out, but I think that resiliency aspect is really, one thing that I, look back on the program with fondly. Two, I would say really the people, the connections that I've made and the network that I've grown and the people that, I've learned to lean on for help. I think that aspect of that has really been important. And I just also, lastly would say that third thing would just being able to see the type of person that I want to be down the line. I think Carrie has really, empowered me with that vision. Coming in, I understood things a certain way, but I would say my mindset about business, about life, all the things that I was able to learn really go far beyond the classroom and are things that I'm be able to apply in my everyday life that has truly made me a better person. So I would say those three things are really, my favorite part about this process.
Great. Now, Will, what three things most resonated with you through the Kogod program?
So for me, Eli talked about it with his program, but people was one of the most important parts of the program. And I classify that with people in my, in terms of fellow classmates, professors, and then alumni. Every single one of these groups of people had an impact on me from working with every single group project. Every single person was such a collaborator and really contributed to the projects that we made. I know
Mm,
that's always was a concern. Like, I know for me in my undergrad, I was not always as fortunate to have team players that surrounded you. Not the case in my MBA. Every single group I've been in for since I started the program was everybody was checking in. What do you need me to do? How can I help put this in the right on the right track? Everybody was working together. The professors were also so supportive, and they made the information resonate with you in a way that it didn't come out of a textbook and you had to memorize it. No, they made it like they really went the extra mile to make it relatable so you could walk away with information, as I talked about earlier, that is applicable for your career. How can I make this make sense? These principles about finances and accounting. As a marketing guy and not a numbers guy myself, but how can I take that information to my job and say, you know what? This makes sense when we're trying to budget for this new project and market it as an asset for our company. And then the alumni, the wealth of knowledge that they have just about the program, about the business school and the university, as well as the international networks that they have just outside of the United States and different parts of, the East and the West, and the different companies that they have worked with, the ability to connect you with different people in different companies. In fact, people that actually work within your company and you just never knew. And I've been in many instances where I've connected with people in my company who are graduates of American University, both in the Kogod School of Business, but also getting masters in public health and going down that road. And I've been fortunate enough to be connected with them through that shared network that we have at American University. So I would say the three things, it's the compartments within the people. So alumni, professors, and fellow classmates. They've been the biggest part.
Perfect. Raymond, your three things at Questrom.
Yeah, I'm going to springboard off what Will said. It's for
Yeah.
me, number one is definitely the community and just the connections you've made. I've met some individuals from the team from, again, different geographic locations that were now personal friends. We've actually gone out in the city to just have a couple of beers or discuss the content or just vent about the frustrations with the program. If when there's, Will talked about hitting the lottery with great teams. There's sometimes when you get dealt a bad hand and you still have to navigate it, because one thing I appreciate with BU is that they try to mirror as close as possible to real life scenarios. So if you have a bad teammate at work, you still have to get the work done. So that sort of instilled that confidence and framework for me to also take back to my core job. The other one was in BU, they had in Mod 2, it's just data analytics. They spent 99% of it just being solo, which I appreciated because it's much more beneficial learning the in and outs of Excel and SPSS and all these other data analytic programs for yourself. If you do it as a team, you're not really getting the benefit, and you're not going to be able to take it back to work because you're going to ask somebody, hey, can you run a pivot table for me or data analytics? It's best if you do it. So those skills transitioned immediately to my day-to-day job. And then the other one, based on just the assignments and talking to the live class, I think my public speaking, I've been much more, I've increased my public speaking abilities. Before I was a little bit more shy, I was a little bit more passive. I'm much more confident in, you have a question, if I get it right or wrong, I'm still speaking and just, enhancing my confidence with just speaking to others. And most of the time, others have the same questions. So even if I get it wrong, I'm learning. And if I get it right, it's a boost to my confidence that I got the material understood.
Right. So I wonder, for each of you, what surprised you most about the program? Maybe something you didn't expect? And what did you find most challenging about the program? Raymond, let's stay with you.
Okay, so I think the most challenging, and I quickly understood it, is that when you get a capstone, you cannot hit every single component to the T and how it's requested. You can get the A, but it's very, very hard to appease every single stakeholder or every single TA or learning facility who reads the material. So that was very quickly understood. And it almost, again, transitions and mirrors my regular work, because there's times where I can't make every supervisor happy. There's always something that they find that deviates from what they wanted. So I think that was the most challenging. And then the other part was, I think the other challenging aspect, I think I alluded to it before, with teaming, everyone is coming, we're all professionals, but because of our differences in values, there are some who are okay with just getting a C or a B or just getting to the end. So it's like, how do I uplift you so that you're mirroring what I want? Because if you fail, then I fail. But if I bring you up to a certain level of expectation, how can I bring you just enough where you can follow me and we can get without me putting too much pressure on you? And it's easily translated to my work experience in terms of how do you get people that you manage to follow your lead or to just go with the flow, especially if there's differences in how they want to do their work. So I think that's the most difficult. And I'm close to graduating. I think I've got a good handle at it now. It's always still a shock when you do get it. Like, please let me hit the lottery like Will hit, and let me just get five good teammates and let's roll.
And your biggest surprise, something you didn't expect?
I think the one thing I didn't expect was there's certain mods where you have one mod where you have leeway. You get, here's Friday, the content releases, you get 2 to 3 weeks to do it. Then does the mod 4 where I'm currently in right now, where it's, you have the Friday work and you have Monday or Sunday to get it done. And you still have to juggle that with all your personal. So there were some sacrifices I had to make early on and still now, where I feel like I shouldn't be having to take these sacrifices, but I'm close to doing it. So that was more shocking. I feel like I have a really, really good handle at organizing all of it, but there's always something that gets hit, an extra reading or an extra assignment that throws a monkey wrench into the plan. So
Mm.
I think that constantly still surprises me. And, you know, I'm enjoying it, but it's still a surprise.
Now, Kogod, will one surprise and one challenge.
So one challenge for me was, I would say, understanding how professors interpret classes and examinations and projects.
Hmm.
Um, as Ray alluded to, yes, I was very fortunate in terms of the groups that I was working with, but sometimes it felt like when we were doing project checkups, like intermediate check-ins and things like that, it just felt like we were doing Shark Tank and having like investment pitches, and we were just not really clicking with the professor. Like, I'm not seeing enough of X. You're giving me more Y, but why am I not seeing? And it was just really more about learning exactly how the professor operates, like what is going to work for them in terms of your studying habits, navigating projects, and then it was a collaboration with the teams to learn, okay, let's adapt to how this professor thinks so that way we can better resonate with them in terms of the research that we're doing. So that was something that I would say was more of a challenge. And then the surprise was how fast the semesters go by. I can
Wow.
tell you that it seems like you start one week and it's a 10-week semester, and then you blink and you snap, and out of nowhere, you're in week 8 and the final's coming up. And you're like, where the heck did the time go here? So I would say, for those that are considering like, online or in-person full-time MBAs, like definitely be mindful of time because it can get away from you. No matter where you're, no, what program you're in or where you are. So that would
Yeah,
be the most surprising thing.
great. Eli, what about for you?
Yeah, great question. And I would say for me, the most challenging thing was really trying to strike a balance between getting a grade and actually learning. So I think some of the benefits of a full-time program is you aren't working, you're fully immersed, so you're really able to learn the content. Whereas when you are in an online program, sometimes you have to really prioritize, do I have the time to really set aside to learn this content, or should I do what's needed to get the grade? So really being able to strike that balance, because it is important to learn, the content is, so striking that balance, I think, was really some of the challenging things, especially when I'm in a challenging period at work or in my personal life. And it's easy to say, let me just try to do what I can to get the grade. But the content matters, learning those things matter. And so that was really the most challenging part, striking that balance. And as for the most surprising thing is, when I thought about business school and coming in, a lot of this was centered around ROI, right? How am I going to get a better job and I'm going to increase monetarily? But one thing that I didn't expect was the personal growth I experienced in business school and being here at Carey. So that was really the most surprising aspect of the program, is that intangible side of the intangible benefits that you really don't consider when you're looking into an MBA program.
Right. Tell me about a favorite course you took. Eli?
Yeah, great question. So really two courses really stick out in in my MBA process. One was negotiations, just
Right.
because there's so many things that I never considered that went into negotiations, be it in person, online, and just some of the underlying aspects. So taking that class, it almost made me realize in, certain negotiations at work or just even personal life. Like I wasn't going in with like the full information and a framework that enabled me to perform the best in that. So I really enjoyed that class and going through the exercises. And then new product development was also a class that I really enjoyed, because when you think of we operate on a lot of assumptions. And I think that was a class that really, gave me the framework of step back, analyze, really talking to customers, engaging that discovery process of, is my idea and what I think actually what the customer think, what the customer is thinking. And being that I come from a sales background, and you operate with a lot of assumptions of the customer, this product is so great and the customer is going to love it and it's going to succeed, but you really don't take that time to understand, is this customer driven or is this product driven? So I think those were some of my favorite classes.
Will, what was your favorite class at Kogod?
That's going to be tough to answer. There were a ton of really enjoyable ones that I've had. Um, I would say if I had to pick one, my most enjoyable one was a creative economics course that I took. It was one of Kogod's, they call them immersion courses. You take two of them in your MBA curriculum. Basically, it's an 8 to 10 week course where you have classwork online and you meet with professors every week. But then at the end of the class, you travel to a specific location and you meet other students at a specific event, as well as alumni, and then you give a final presentation on your research for that project at the end. So for the one that I did, it was the group had gone to Nashville, Tennessee, and our
Huh.
project was on to build a Major League Baseball expansion team to the city of Nashville. So
Oh,
we
wow.
did a ton of research on the city. We researched Major League Baseball's current plans for expansion because they were thinking at the time about Nashville, and I believe Salt Lake City was on the table because Oakland Athletics are coming to Vegas. So we did research in that. We researched the financials, and at the very end, we came up with a PowerPoint presentation as well as a paper with financials in terms of what would it cost for Nashville to build the stadium and develop a Major League Baseball group there. And we ended up being the best in the group. The class voted us the best project, and at the end, I found out that our alumni team was telling current students that it was quite possibly one of the best projects they'd ever seen presented. So
That sounds like fun too.
it was so much fun, and obviously, I'm sure everybody knows the city of Nashville is unbelievable. So absolutely recommend going if you have not, but it's a great place to network with, your fellow students and colleagues and alumni too. So it was just a very rewarding experience and very, very communal. It had a very communal atmosphere to it, which was great.
Great. Raymond, your favorite course? And I know that your curriculum is very integrated and theme-based.
Yes. So for us, my favorite course, I was going to say the data analytics, but I already talked about that. I'm going to shift it to, I think, global leaders. There is right at the inception, they had you do a 360 feedback. So you identify 5 people in your life that just really are, they're going to be genuine in giving you feedback about who you are, what you do well, what you do wrong. And then what I appreciated the most about that was you can take the feedback after generating a report and working on yourself effectively. So I had one of my direct supervisors who was a little bit annoyed because he said, I have to do this 360 feedback for you for school, but you're not really following the instructions I've given you in your yearly evaluation. But it allowed me to take what they were saying I needed to improve on and actually apply it to the real world. And because they saw the improvement, they saw dedication to actually receiving feedback. And the other thing the program did, what that class did specifically, was removing yourself when you receive feedback on your assignments. For myself, I struggle when I see feedback that criticizes the work. I'm like, oh, you're insulting me personally, but it's not. I'm just trying to fix your approach or your understanding of course content. So that class gave me a lot of humility and flexibility with working with just not myself but global teams, because I think Will hit it as well in terms, or I think I was talking about it before, but we're all talking about it. You get these teammates and you got to try to work with them. And my approach is very, everything's a nail. You got to hit it on the hammer. Let's move. But that's not the case for somebody who may be coming from a different area who's a little bit more passive. So that course helped me tremendously with just that leadership quality. I'm still working on it, but it was fun.
That's great. Now, of course, a lot of the people who are watching this are people who were like in your shoes a few years ago. They were in the consideration phase of deciding on an MBA and which way they would go. And I wondered, looking back, is there one thing you wish you had known before you applied and entered the program that you now know that might help applicants or would-be applicants to these programs? Raymond?
Interesting question. I would say I wish I would have known the level of teamwork assignments when I did my undergrad, and I did a couple of other curriculums, or just like one-offs. It's very solo driven. BU is very team heavy, so you quickly have to be able to, when you get dealt those 5 teammates at the moment the semester starts, how quickly can you immediately integrate with them, set up weeklies, get to learn everybody. That for me was, I wish I would have learned more about it. And I think, but you quickly learn it's achievable. So that I wish they would have put a little bit more importance and said, hey, we're all working professionals, but 60 to 70% of your career here is going to be team assignments. I thought it was going to be more solo.
Yeah. Will, what do you wish you had known?
So for me, I wish that I were more prepared going into the application process and the MBA program. And what I mean by that is the MBA as a degree, it doesn't, just magically give you clarity on like managerial business and all these different things. It gives you a more of a compressed, high pressure environment where you can actually figure out all of these different things and answer all these questions. And I think for myself, when I came into it, I thought that it was all going to click and I was going to have a, eureka moment and everything was going to make sense and I was going to have my eyes open to like a C-suite level of mindset when it came to business. And that's just not how it works. What you have to have is like the patience and the foresight to be able to take that information and ask the right questions and talk to the right people, because only by doing that and having your mind open to like different schools of thought and understanding, that's how you get to a level where you're thinking on the C-suite, level of a company. So if I could go back in time, I'd tell myself to be prepared and also to be patient with the program.
Good advice for everyone. Eli,
Yeah, I think one of the big things going back and some of the questions that I wished I would have asked is really getting an understanding of the type of professionals and profession that people I'm attending class are coming from. So the networking aspect is something that's really big in the MBA program. So if you're someone that's in the medical fields and knowing if the program that you're in, your classmates are going to be from that same field or what other fields that they're coming from. I wish that's something I would have keyed in on that would have given me a better understanding of the type of working professionals that I was going to be in class with, because that would have, helped to dictate, some of the other experiences and other types of people that you're going to come into contact with, and getting that understanding, I think, is something that would have been beneficial to help play a part in the decision of where you go.
now all your answers are a great segue into our final question, which is basically simple. What advice would you give someone who's considering an online MBA program today? So Eli, what's your advice?
Yeah, so I think my primary advice that I would give is really think holistically about this process. So when you first think about why you want to pursue your MBA, there's always a reason, right? All of these tangible reasons. But I would say think outside of the box with that. Think about long term, what type of person that you want to be coming out of the program. Don't just think about your experience while at the school. Think about what do you want your interaction with that school to look like once you are an alumni. So, there's a lot of factors, but just really I challenge you to think beyond why you're pursuing your MBA and some of those other factors that's really going to paint give you a more total picture, of the MBA experience. So I think that would be the one advice that I would really give people, and really ask questions as well. Ask questions, don't operate off any assumptions. Ask those tough questions, because it's a big commitment and you want to be as informed as possible when you make it.
Right. Will, your advice?
I think Eli hit a huge piece of advice on the head in terms of asking a lot of questions. There's no such thing as asking too many, especially when you're talking about such a financial as well as career-oriented investment as an MBA is. There's no such thing as asking too many questions, because the more you ask, the more informed you're going to be. The other thing that I would say is people that are coming into the program, especially people who are joining us here today, there's probably people from every walk of life here. They're right out of their undergrad. They're about 8 to 10 years into their professional career. They're married with kids, or they're family planning, and they're thinking about those things. So they're coming from different parts of their life, and it takes a great deal of time, energy, finances, and as I mentioned earlier, patience to kind of see this process through and get to a point where you get through the degree.
Right.
So really, one of the biggest pieces of advice I have is to put it in one line, go with intention and not just ambition. Beware of why you're doing it, and if you can still see it through and believe it, but also see the why of why you want to get there,
Mm.
that's the most important thing. And if you've talked to, like, obviously, your loved ones and your family, and you still see this as something that is going to maximize your earnings potential, but also maximize the earnings potential of your family, then you have every intention in the world to move forward with this, and you're able to see it through and know that there's a lot that can be done in terms of advancing yourself and advancing the position of those that you care about around you. So that's what I would say. And then also, if you're in a position where you're not 100% sure, that's okay. That's, Poets and Quants is having this unbelievable event, is so you can learn more about people who are in it and talk to people who have been through the process, and talking to current students like us and members of staff for the respective universities that are a part of this event. That's how you get to the place where you can go with the intention of, I'm going to do this, and your why of why you're going to do it. So that
I
would be
like
my
that.
advice.
Intention, not ambition. Raymond, your advice to prospective students of an online MBA.
Just a quick two, since Will and Eli hit on it. First one, just be careful with naysayers. When I was obtaining feedback from, do I want to pursue this? Is it going to be great? I had supervisors or others saying, it may not be beneficial. You're doing enough as is. I took that as more of a, you don't want me to be more competitively advantageous than you are in this current market. So, I appreciate your feedback, but I'm going for this. And then
Yeah.
the most important thing is, once you have your financials in place, make the investment. There's no bat signal that says March you should go into it, or in the summer you should go into it. If you have the money and you can commit to yourself and make the investment, go for it. Don't seize up and wait for another opportunity to come that may not come.
There you have it. Go for it. I think that's really it. A lot of people think about doing this for a long period of time, and somehow can't pull the trigger. And then when they finally do, they regret that they waited. And I think that that's true of many people. So I want to thank Raymond, Will, and Eli for their perspectives and insights. I think we get a lot of information for all of you folks out there who are considering an online MBA program. So Boston University's Questrom School of Business, American University's Kogod School of Business, and the Johns Hopkins University Carey Business School all have great online MBA programs. If you want to know more about them, check out their websites. They have a lot of detailed information on these programs, the syllabus, the curriculum, the career outcomes, and get in touch. Otherwise, good luck to you. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.